Cameron Stewart of Locked On Baylor. Iowa State without the services of Keshon Gilbert in March Madness now. Tamin Lipsey already banged up. Milan Momcilovic was banged up during the later parts of the year. This is a team that needed rest. They got that with an extra couple days off of the Big 12 tournament. I didn't mind that. I do think that I mind this part. Iowa State, who faces Lipscomb, losing Keshon Gilbert.
Yeah, that's really tough. I mean, you talk about a team that's been battling injuries. It has been really up and down towards the end of this year. They went from like Curtis Jones is the best kept secret in the country to Curtis Jones, carry us, please. I'm going to look at this very simplistically with Keshon Gilbert. You know, we've all watched him play. We see the kind of impact he has in the game, but just from a statistical standpoint, 14 points and 4 assists a game. Think about that. That's 11 baskets that he's created that you no longer have. Now, Iowa State's a talented team. They can make up some of that. But that is a big time loss when it comes to the most important games of the year. An all Big 12 player, an all conference player leaving your roster. Yeah. It's pretty tough. I don't know how much. Look, they could beat Lipscomb, but can we bring up that part of the bracket again? I don't know how much further the road goes for them. Ole Miss, if Ole Miss is in there, they're playing one of the play-in 11 seeds. Like if we're gonna give some respect to the SEC, Ole Miss would need to beat Iowa State for me. Like that's a danger team. We know how Chris Beard is in the tournament. But it's just Iowa State went from a Final Four team, a team that I very much thought was capable of going to the Final Four 2-3 weeks ago, to it's gonna be a dogfight to get out of the first weekend with the way they've played, but also this Keshon Gilbert injury situation. He's a huge part of what they do, man.
I am once again, and you can make the argument whenever all the time people do that. Yeah, well, play the Big 12 tournament. Come on, don't forfeit that. This is another example of just doing things a little bit too hard, going a little bit too far when you're pushing toward March Madness and crap hitting the fan and looking around and going, oh, shoot, what should we have load managed? Should we have done something here to keep a guy like Keshon Gilbert off of that injury list? And I'm like, he only played 10 minutes against Cincinnati or something, like 10, 12 minutes against Cincinnati in the Big 12 tournament. But still, guys, he's dealt with groin injury issues. And now all of a sudden it goes from, some injury issues to he's out for all of March Madness. And you have to have a guy like this to make as deep of a run as Iowa State expected to make. Yeah,
and past even the injury thing about the conference tournament, I think we saw it with Houston last year. Like the way that Houston plays, it's a very similar way to the way Iowa State plays. Like that takes a lot out of you when you're doing it 3 days in a row in the conference tournament. Then you got to go and travel and play somewhere else, play someone really good the next week. That to me is a bigger factor for teams like Iowa State and like Houston. We saw what it did to Houston last year. Houston was banged up. You add 3 more games. They don't even win the thing. And Jamal Shedd's out in the Sweet 16. Keshon Gilbert's not quite as good as Jamal Shedd, but he is pretty important to what they do. It's going to seem like a waste now. It absolutely will.
Looking at the bracket as it sits, Iowa State to me has the second easiest.
I like that Rothstein said hasn't played since March 12th, by the way. Yeah, which is just, as if that wasn't 4 days ago.
Yep. Round one.
This. Like, round of the last game, basically, that they played.
Iowa State Lipscomb to me is an Iowa State win because of their defensive prowess. Ole Miss gets a little bit
also
tougher.
Because I can't tell you where Lipscomb is.
Tennessee,
Georgia, Tennessee. Okay, that makes sense.
It's the second easiest path still because Ole Miss does not scare me that much.
I just don't know a lot about Ole Miss. That's a good point. Like I know Chris Beard, but I really don't know. And that was an Ole Miss team that was in the top 25 by the time the conference season started, and they haven't been in it basically since. So that's a damning thing. Sorry.
So I think that is the second easiest path to the Sweet 16 outside of Houston, who got Gonzaga. And I don't love the draw. I don't hate it completely, but I don't love the draw. This to me is the easiest of the Big 12 schools to make the Sweet 16. Texas Tech facing UNC Wilmington, and then the winner of Missouri and Drake. And then from there, the winner of Kansas, Arkansas, St. John's, and Omaha. I think St. John's could very well be a Final Four team, but it feels like to me, Texas Tech, their trip to the Sweet 16 isn't all that bad.
Yeah, because you look at that 6-11 and it's like they seem like two danger teams, not teams that you know a lot about, but you're like, oh man, if this thing can go right, they can. And that's just not the way you need to look at it. If you're Texas Tech on the other side, Tech's better than those teams, right? I think Tech has been slighted a little bit all year long, but a 3 seed feels like where they should be. I think that's the only Big 12 team other than Houston that I'm like, yeah, that's where they should be. And so yes, Tech should be there. Tech should be there playing in the next weekend. And you look at the other side, I mean, St. John's to me, like you said, I think that's a Final Four team. And so that's where it gets really tough. But Tech can play a couple different styles, man. I think they could be – I think they can absolutely make a run at this thing. Kansas and Arkansas, that's a fascinating one, by the way.
I do like the Kansas-Arkansas. The fact that it's Calipari, Bill Self, and Rick Pitino, all three in the same.
So good, man.
In the same hotel.
And Grant McCaslin.
In the same arena. Yeah. They're all sitting right there. And then, McCaslin's right there, as well as whoever Drake has hired to replace Darian DeVries, and they're right back in the March Madness fold.
Yeah, they get the last laugh, don't they? We're in the tournament.
Also,
Darian DeVries is not.
Tech has a very good shot to end up playing Drake in this matchup. I don't have a ton of confidence in Missouri. If you ask Haslametrics, they have Texas Tech beating a team like Drake by 10 points ultimately. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's who they get, because Missouri likes to play very fast. Texas Tech would beat Missouri by 4 if you asked Haslametrics. Drake likes to play slow. Typically, those defensive slow teams win. And with Tech also being defensive and slow, I think they beat Drake because they have the better athletes out of the two. This is March. Anything can happen. As we take another look at other Big 12 schools in the bracket, we haven't talked a lot on Houston yet. Let's touch on the Cougars, SIU Edwardsville in round 1, then that winner of Gonzaga and the winner of Gonzaga and Georgia. As I've said, I think Tech has the first easiest path to a Sweet 16. Iowa State not too far behind them. And that's just because Houston facing Gonzaga is not one of those you go, oh yeah, sure, they'll beat whoever,
Don't love that. Love that, man.
Most years your 8 is like Nebraska. Like, they'll beat Nebraska.
Not a team that's made the Sweet 16 the last decade.
Yeah, this is a team built for March.
Yeah, that's the one that really stuck out to me for Big 12 teams, other than like the seeding parts of it, was like, ooh, you're going to get Gonzaga round 2. Last year, they didn't look very good either. They were like a 6 seed. And they kicked the crap out of Kansas in that second round, and they got to the Sweet 16. This is just what they do. Mark Few, this is his month. When it gets to April, it gets pretty tough for them. They don't do well then, but in March they do really well. And for a team in Houston, psychologically, that's gone out too early each of the last 3 seasons, I think that's a bad draw.
You mentioned Mark Few not having a ton of success in April. Kelvin Sampson's also kind of in that category of not the best April guy in the world, but certainly really solid in March. I think Houston could walk its way to the Final Four, given the draw that it got. Any other big surprises from the bracket?
I'm surprised they went with 68 teams this year.
Usually 64, and they made it a field of 68. Brett Yormark won 78 or whatever.
76, I think, is what he wants. And someone in my comment section was just like, it should be 76, you idiot. And that was just it. Like, no explanation. I was like, oh, sure. Yeah.
Well, the only thing, I told Ward Whites this on the press box when I was on, I think, Friday.
It's a huge spot for you.
Is you think about schools like UTSA, Karen Aston women's basketball. They go, I think, undefeated in conference play, and then losing their conference tournament in the quarterfinals. Just, oops, we had one bad game. And now you're out of March. It's crazy. What are we playing the regular season for in some of these smaller conferences if it only matters when it comes down to the conference tournament? Like, just don't give them film. Give no one film.
Would it be easier? Like, this is a real quick thought at the end here. Would it be easier if you just took automatic qualifiers from the mid majors for the regular season championship? Like, or you know what? I'm not putting this well. Like, I think you should have 2 automatic qualifiers. You should have a regular season and a conference tournament one. And obviously, for a lot of years, teams are going to win both.
Right.
And then that can allow for a West Virginia or an Ohio State and 5 more teams and then North Carolina. I think if you're going to expand to 76 or 84, whatever it's going to be, I think that's the way to do it. Incentivize the regular season championship because it's more impressive than the conference tournament championship.
Correct.
And then you'll have some years, like last year where St. Louis won the Missouri Valley tournament, but Indiana State was wire to wire the best team and they won in the regular season. I think that's a good way to go about it.
It was Drake that won the MVC last
Drake,
year.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Stupid name.
They're back again. That is Cameron Stewart of
I always get them mixed up for some reason.
at Real Cam Stewart and Locked On Baylor. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.